Q is more than a letter, it's action. It stands for the bold and the unheard, diverse, vibrant, and defiant. Let's talk, let's walk. This is your Q.
All right, everybody. All right, this is your Q, episode 4. Okay. I'm really excited. Edgar can't be here, but I'm Kathy Clem. I am the board chair of Capital City Pride, and I am really excited to bring this episode because I have worked on it some, not as much as some of the other people on the podcast. But let me just give a little background. Okay, so board members have to actually have an initiative. And 4 of us, Mary Barnes, Greta Martin, Laura Heller, and me, Kathy Clem, got together because sort of kind of our initiatives were similar, different, but similar. And we said, wouldn't it be really cool if we could have a summit or some kind of day-long event where we could talk about queer issues, but really as it relates to voting and the political climate. And if you've watched any of these episodes, you know that we allude to the political climate a little bit. So this episode is going to be in advance of the 29th of this month. We are going to have the Pride and Power Summit, the first annual, I hope.
I hope so.
I hope so. And it will be at the
Old Capitol Inn.
Old Capitol Inn from 9 until 4:30. It's free, but we have amazing vendors. We have amazing speakers. We have amazing sponsors. We have it. I'm just telling you, it is going to be really amazing. So we want you to come, but we want you to listen to this podcast so that you get a feel for what's going to be there. And really what we're trying to do with this podcast, with the summit. Anyway, so what I want to do is introduce our panel for tonight or today. And I'm going to start with the person who really was the sort of the spearhead. I am really honored to have been able to work with her this year as a new board member, and she is amazing. And I am going to let Greta Martin do the first intro.
Well, thank you. That was amazing. I love being introduced that way. So my name is Greta Kemp Martin. I'm an attorney in Jackson. I've been an attorney in Jackson for about 16 years, focused on a lot of different civil rights issues, but voting rights was always a big part of my practice, no matter where I've landed. So when I joined Capital City Pride and one of the first things Kathy said is like, I'm going to expect you to have an initiative. I was like, well, it has to be around civic participation and engagement, because I think there are communities that need to be more involved in our local community, and the best way to do that is with voting. And so I was really happy that Capital City Pride, and specifically Kathy, was open to this, because not everybody is, especially in a climate like we have right now. That's a very good word. So I am a board member. This is my first year on the board, but I've always been in the periphery of Capital City's work. That was one organization that really welcomed me and supported me when I ran for Attorney General in 2023. Let me come and speak at Pride, and let me come and speak at all your events. And so it was just, this was a natural fit for me to provide volunteer service for. So I'm really happy to be here today, and I'll pass it on to McKenna.
Hi, I'm McKenna Rainey. I'm with the ACLU of Mississippi as the... Sorry, I didn't give you a pause for that. I'm with the ACLU of Mississippi, and I'm the LGBTQ staff attorney. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I guess one of the reasons that I share that is because I do a lot of community education. I'm an attorney, and that's like, I'm in the legal department, so that's a lot of what I do. But I also produce resources that I give out at Pride, try to teach people about what their rights are, or how the legal systems impact people in real ways, and that kind of thing. I've been in this role as long as Capital City Pride has existed. So I started in August of 2021, and the first Pride event that I ever went to in Mississippi was Capital City Pride. So that was
Wow.
really fun.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Hi, friends. I'm Kathleen O'Byrne. I'm the founder of Mississippi United, and Daniel, can you just follow me around with that, like throughout
Everywhere
my
you
life?
go.
That'd be great. Thank you. I am a recovering lawyer. I do not practice law anymore. This is the happiest phase of my life. I started Mississippi United about a year ago after working as a volunteer activist and organizer for a few years, and realizing that there are so many good Mississippians around who care about our state, care about our country, the direction things are headed. We want to see things get better, but when you're busy living life, working your job or your jobs, raising a family, taking care of elderly loved ones, enjoying hobbies, like whatever you do to live your life, when you're busy doing those things, if you're not some policy government nerd, it's hard to know where to plug in and what to do that will actually make a difference. And so Mississippi United exists to really fill that void and to make it easier for people who care to take action to move our state forward. And so I tell people generally, just think about getting us off the bottom of all the good lists and off the top of all the bad lists, whatever that means. So Mississippi United is not an expert in any particular thing. We're not ever going to be the ACLU or or Capital City Pride or Planned Parenthood or the Nature Conservancy. Like we learn from all those organizations that are doing the important work. And then we do things like write letters that constituents can sign on to that go to their elected officials about a variety of different issues. We put together talking points if you want to call your public officials about a thing. We publish a calendar because we think it's really important for Mississippians to show up and to get to know each other and to build community. And then our newest project we started working on earlier this year is a Get Out the Vote project, because we think, originally we started with the whole constituent engagement piece, which is super important, but we realized also that Mississippians can take action to educate their friends and family and neighbors about the issues that are at play in an upcoming election. So Why Vote, the letter Y, VOTE, is our pilot Get Out the Vote project. And really, at Why Vote, we believe that the better educated Mississippians are, that when Mississippians are informed about the issues and where the candidates stand and what the candidates have done, they will go out and vote, and they will vote their own interest as long as they are informed. I think in this environment, there is so much disinformation, so much misinformation, and then, of course, there's also a lot of apathy. And we believe that educating voters about the issues is the best way to counter the misinformation, the disinformation, and the apathy, and actually drive people to the polls in a way that they're going to vote for a better Mississippi.
Yay. And then Noelle.
Noelle, are you there?
Hi. Yes. So my name's Noelle Nolan Ryder. My wife and I founded Vote Your Pride Mississippi in 2016 after doing a voter registration drive at our local Pride on the Coast through Mississippi Rising Coalition. And we realized that we really needed something that was LGBTQ specific to educate and engage our community on issues that were specific to us, and to teach like our own community how local and state level politics has a direct impact on your life. So, thanks.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here, Noelle.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to really do this kind of organically because that's kind of how we roll. And but I do have a few questions to start things off because I want to make sure we touch all the bases and make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going to be happening at the summit, but also just in general about voting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's more important than ever.
That's right.
Okay, so first thing, Greta.
Yeah.
For somebody hearing about it for the first time, what exactly is the Pride and Power Summit?
Yep.
And why do you think Capital City Pride decided that this was an event that we needed to create and really go rock on with?
Yeah. So the Pride and Power Summit is, as you mentioned, free voter education event. I also think it's important to stress that this is a nonpartisan event. You're not going to come on Saturday and be bombarded with candidates or fundraising asks or anything of that nature. This is purely to teach people about their rights, to inform them of what elections are happening this year and into next year. We, and by we, I mean me and my wonderful co-chairs, we constructed the agenda very intentionally. We start the day with education around federal elections. We have a federal election in November. I'm sure most people have been bombarded by texts and commercials of candidates in the area. But we have folks on, they're all panels. So you're going to get a lot of different perspectives in every session. And again, that's intentional, not just one person speaking at you, but a conversation. We're going to start with federal elections and walk through that. Then we're going to go into a state elections panel. Again, kind of looking ahead into 2027, Mississippi holds off-year elections. So we are rolling into another gubernatorial election year. And so we want people to kind of have a little heads up on what they can expect other than the annoying commercials and the fundraising text messages that they will inevitably get. But then we roll into education around making sure you can vote. And so that's where McKenna's panel comes in. I'm sure she'll speak to that in a moment around if we had some legislation come down over the past year, and people might have heard the Mississippi Shield Act. There's going to be a panel around that and other legislations that impact voting. And we're going to follow that with a panel of attorneys that will discuss name change, identity documents, things that you need to ensure that your registration's up to par and that you can actually vote in November and beyond. Then we're gonna roll into a city government panel. We have Jackson City officials that are going to be coming and speaking how you can get engaged on a local level. We're going to have council people who can come and tell you how to make a public comment at a city council meeting so that you can get engaged on that level. And then we're going to round out the day with my personal favorites. The whole day is to give people education and information. But I also want to empower those that might want to step up and be more involved outside of the voter box. So we're going to end the day with how you can get involved. And that is if you want to go put your name on a ballot to run for election commission, city council, governor, I don't know. If you want to get some information on how you can run for office, we're going to end the day with that panel. So I really see the summit as just a progression throughout the day where we give you information about elections, then we give you information about how you can vote and have your voice heard at the ballot box. And then we end the day with if you want to get more engaged by being a candidate or being engaged in organizations like Mississippi United, who will be there with resources on how you can get involved in their activities. It's really a full day of this is my voice, this is how I can use it, and we're going to show you different ways that you can get involved in your community. And so I think this was important for Capital City Pride because I think when we look at Mississippi, there are several populations that are not represented in our legislature, in our elected officials. And I think that the LGBTQ community is one of those populations.
Yeah.
Openly.
Yes.
Openly.
There you go. Good distinction, McKenna. I love that.
Ching.
That's a whole other podcast, for sure. But I do think that that is a population of people that need to be more openly represented in our elected officials. And the way you start is you empower somebody at a free event about voters' rights. I mean, the first time I decided I wanted to run for office was, probably a CLE session where I felt like this law is stupid and I want to do something about it, right? Like I wanted to get involved. And so you never know who you will empower while you're also giving them the information that they need. And so when I brought this idea to Capital City Pride, this was just a really good opportunity to engage folks that I felt like need to have that voice, need to be more represented in our government. So, and honestly, in our voting,
Yeah.
we need to hear that. There's, I don't have the numbers. People smarter than me do, but there is a voter turnout problem in Mississippi, on every level. And I think that some of that comes from empathy, but I think some of that comes from we don't really know what the hell's going on. And we need that information. I mean, Kathleen hit the nail on the head. You got to give them accurate, good, frankly, nonpartisan information that they can then go and make their own decision about who they want to vote and who they want to represent them. So I thought it was a very important project for us to undertake.
Very much so. Weren't you kind of surprised at how excited people were to actually be invited to speak?
Yes.
To sponsor?
I love it.
To come?
Oh, I was so excited. When I tell you we have some of the best speakers, I've never been more proud. I've been involved in a lot of events. But when I started calling, I mean, of course, attorneys like McKenna, who I knew were very entrenched in this work. But I'll tell you what shocked me was legislators. When I reached out to legislators who I'm like, look, if you're going to be in that Capitol 3 months out of the year making these laws, you need to be able to come sit on panels and explain them to people. And they're like, okay. And now these are legislators that maybe they didn't agree with some of this legislation, but they're ready to come out and explain to people how it's going to impact their rights and their lives. So I was very excited at the desire to be in the community and to answer these questions. I had to turn people down at a point. The panels got
what a good problem
it was
to have.
amazing. Yeah, I love it. We had to say, look, our panels are full, but we'll keep you in mind for later panels. But I was really excited at the response that people wanted to get out there and educate folks. So
okay, so cool. All right, Noelle, are you here still?
Yes, I am.
So I've got a question for you.
Mhm.
You ready? So
Yes.
you founded Vote Your Pride around LGBTQ issues, voter education, and political engagement. What have you learned about why intentional civic education is so important for the queer community?
Um, so I'm gonna go
I know
back
that's a
to
lot, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I'm gonna go back to the first voter registration campaign we ran when we moved here at a Pride event, and that was in 2015. Um, I continually had people come up to the booth, and they would just say, "I don't do politics." And there's that Nina Turner quote that she says, "Well, politics is going to do you regardless, baby." And that's the truth.
Daniel, where's the applause button for that?
So we make up roughly 10%. The LGBTQ community makes up roughly 10% of every state, and 10%, if you were registered to vote and engaged, would absolutely flip elections, and it would flip elections in Mississippi. So I think that's always really important to know that if we engaged our community and educated them, we would have a different outcome for our elections. Um, the other thing is M- Mississippi, we have a lot of state legislative laws that impact us on a daily basis. We also don't have a lot of city ordinances that protect us. So those are real issues, and especially when you get down to local, like school boards and the policies that they are currently making that impact gender non-conforming and trans kids. So it really, on almost every level, we can point to ways where there are negative outcomes and impacts on our community because of the policies that politicians are making for us.
Wow. Yeah. I was about to ask you, like, I need a 15-second response when someone says, when a queer person says, I'm not political.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're queer, you get that all the time. And it
Yeah.
is disheartening. But I also kind of get it because it's like we've been sort of taught not to make waves.
Sure.
Almost still leftover don't ask, don't tell.
Mhm.
And it's ridiculous because everything happening, especially now, is affecting us, whether you wanna believe it or not. And if you don't lean in to doing something or well, even voting,
Right.
but just having an opinion about things.
Yeah.
Y-
And this is
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, Audre Lorde has said your silence will not protect you. And that is absolutely true. And I think sometimes the queer community feels like if they assimilate into straight culture and straight norms in Mississippi, that would sort of protect them, especially the white queer community in Mississippi. And that really just is not the case because these legislatures, your whiteness is not going to protect you in a queer situation in Mississippi.
Wow.
I think the best answer when somebody says that they're not political, it is my go-to is, being political doesn't have to be about being partisan. And this is where organizations, I think, like Mississippi United and Vote Your Pride and several others are important because what they're doing is informing folks about issues. Giving people accurate information, telling them how their Congress people are voting and what's kind of in the hopper to be voted, and then letting people make their own decision. Sign the letter, don't sign the letter, support this candidate, don't support this candidate. But if you have information and accurate data around issues, you're giving people that option to then let them make the decision. So politics, it doesn't have to be a partisan thing. You just have to be informed about issues that impact your life, and then you can make a decision about who represents that or who's against that or for that. But I do think organizations are doing a great job, like Kathleen's, that are telling people what issues are out there and what are the pressing issues of the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. So McKenna,
Mhm.
hello. You're speaking on the name change and voting panel, which to me is huge. Why can something that sounds so fairly straightforward become much more complicated once different government records are involved?
Yeah. Well, first I'm going to talk about very briefly, like the process of name change.
Yeah.
So we have form generators on our website so that people can create legal documents that they then file in a courthouse to be able to change their name. So other places, if you're doing a first name change, like Washington State, it's completely administrative. If you change your last name because you get married, it's completely administrative. You just go tell Social Security what your new last name is. But most states have a legal process where you have to file a lawsuit to be able to change your name. And this happens for many reasons. The community I primarily work with is the trans community in Mississippi. Maybe they have a name that is sounds masculine and they want a name that sounds feminine, or they have a name that they feel like it outs them as a trans person when they introduce themselves. But there's also queer people that say, my first name, this family member picked, and I don't have a good relationship with them. First, middle, or last name, and I want to change it to honor something or somebody that's important to me. So a lot of queer people or trans people are changing their names. And if you don't have a legal degree to be able to just do your own name change, it can be really daunting for people to know what are the steps to be able to do this. So we support people to be able to do a self-represented name change. So we have the form generators on our website so that they don't have to do legal drafting on their own. And then I also do a monthly Q&A to try and support people because I realized that it didn't matter. It's kind of like voter registration and get out the vote.
Mhm.
Like we were helping a lot of people draft their documents, but then they were like, cool, what do I do with this? And they didn't file it because they didn't know what to do, because the next steps are also really complicated. So every month I do a Zoom Teams Q&A with people to be like, okay, here is like legal information and legal education about this issue, so that you can feel supported in being able to go, okay, now I know I need to go to the Chancery Court, not the Circuit Court, and like all of those little steps along the way of how to actually get a name change done. And I also end that presentation by saying, like, everything we've just covered is how to get your name changed. And then we could spend another hour talking about how to change and update your official documents. Because all of that can be complicated and daunting, which a lot of people have experienced changing their last name. And they're like, well, I thought about changing my driver's license and my social security card, maybe your email address. But then there's like every single other entity that has your last name or like has a record of your name. You're like, oh my God, it's been 3 years and I'm still like updating documents or something like that. So that means that plenty of people in the world have documents that are inconsistent. Like I said, a lot of people, typically like women, cisgender women in Mississippi or lots of places, are the ones who are changing their last name after they get married. And so there's just so many different documents you can have where maybe your health insurance card has maybe not been updated, but your driver's license has. Maybe you've told your office what your new name is, but you haven't told your bank yet. And so there's just so many different places and entities that may have a record of your name that can be inconsistent. And that's true in like every scenario where you would need these documents or these like personal identifying records to be updated. So then the way that interacts in like the voting context is either you have maybe registered to vote under one name and then you forgot to update that registration. So now your voter registration says name A. You've updated your driver's license that says name B. Well, now there's a mismatch that is actually like dispositive of whether or not you can vote. So like if you have a mismatch of that kind, you can't vote. It's like if you have the wrong address on your ID, like those are the kinds of things that are actually important to be able to vote. It also happens that sometimes people will have a driver's license, especially if they're trans. Maybe it has an older photo with an updated name. So you might have somebody that when they took their photo, they looked more masculine. Now they, in person, look more feminine. And because Mississippi is a state that chose to have an identification requirement to be able to vote, you have to show a photo ID to be able to vote, which means now you have somebody who's looking at your photo and looking at you and making sure that you look like this person to be able to vote. So that can be a barrier either because people are worried about what that experience is going to be like, or because they actually have had experiences in the past of being turned away to vote in that kind of context. So one of the things that we're doing this year is trying to kind of like provide information at the source. So in the past, we've had these either printed cards or digital cards that you can download that say the voter you're talking to is transgender. That means that their sex assigned at birth is different from the way that they currently identify. This does not prevent them from being able to vote, and it is a way to educate the poll worker who is verifying that you're going to be able to vote and educating them into saying basically there's two things. If they are identifiable from their photo ID, you can tell this is this person. It doesn't matter what their gender marker says. It doesn't matter if they look masculine in a picture versus what they look like now versus whether or not their name sounds masculine or feminine. People can get really kind of like distracted by those kinds of things. And so we're kind of trying to inform somebody in like the voting process. Those aren't the things you need to worry about, and those aren't things that you can turn somebody away like legally from. Like you can't prevent somebody to vote for those reasons. So that has kind of put the onus on the voter themselves to educate a poll worker in that moment. And so now we're trying to do some poll worker training with the ACLU and some of the other departments. So I'm in the legal department. Advocacy is like running that show, and they're doing a great job. And I'm like, I have like one sentence or one paragraph you need to include, which is like, don't discriminate against trans people in X, Y, and Z manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it's a lot. It's so much.
I'm sorry.
And,
it is
and,
so much.
And it's
important.
such a burden on an individual to, like you said, educate the poll worker on here's why I can vote. And this is just supposed to be a natural thing that we all have the right to do. But I wanted to mention, just in a follow-up to that, so McKenna will be one of the panelists on our name change panel to discuss this process and kind of give an overview of what you you mentioned here. But following that panel, we have a Know Your Rights panel that will feature folks who can say, okay, so if I get turned away because they would not read the wonderful materials ACLU is providing, what do I do then? And so that whole panel following our name change session is going to be this, basically what could happen at the poll site if you're turned away or you are not provided a ballot. So another good resource that we've kind of paired together so that folks not only know what they need to have when they go to their polling location, but they also know if things go sideways at the polling location, here's what I can do.
Wow.
I feel like that session alone needs to be replicated like all over the state, maybe on a weekly basis between now and November 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we've got really great speakers. We've got representatives from One Voice and Mississippi Votes coming to do that. And I want to back up a little and just mention that we've had lots of our local journalists from Mississippi Today and Mississippi Free Press that are going to be moderating these panels. That was a really important thing for me personally, because I wanted to uplift their voices. They've done such a great job across our state of providing up-to-date information, not just in politics and policy, but across the spectrum. And so they are going to come and be moderators of these panels, and just, I think, add a really good perspective as a moderator, having seen what they see across the state. And so for the Know Your Rights panel in particular, we're going to have Heather Harrison from Mississippi Free Press moderating that panel. So I'm really, really excited about that.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Kathleen.
Yes, Kathy.
From Mississippi United's perspective, what made Pride and Power something your organization wanted to support? And why is investing in civic education important to the communities you're serving?
Okay, so we'll start with why it was important to support the Pride and Power Summit. I've been thinking a lot over the last couple years about how our government, our state government, federal government, local government should not be in the business of making life harder for people.
Can we get that clap?
Dang. I like that.
I mean,
let's see how many more times I can get that between now and then.
Keep dropping truth bombs. We'll do it.
So let's say that again. Government should not be in the business of making life harder for us. Life is hard. No matter who you are, no matter how good you've got it, no matter how much money you have, no matter how educated you are, no matter how white you are, if you have people you love and care about, life can be really freaking hard sometimes, right? Because you have, whether you're raising kids or taking care of an alcoholic sister or somebody who's got mental health issues or like whatever it is, we all have things that are challenging that we go through in life. And sure, it's certainly worse for some than others, for sure. But government should not be making things harder. Government should not be throwing up barriers to voting. Government should not be making it harder for me to figure out the best way to support my trans child. Government should not be making it harder for me to, figure out my family's fertility struggle. Government should not. Just so many examples. And I think if instead government is focused on, government should not be focused on making sure that, people who quote unquote don't deserve it don't get some government assistance, right? Like, let's focus on doing the things that make life easier, that uplift people, that help people thrive more. And, yeah, I mean, if you're focused on punishing the people you think are bad to the detriment of uplifting everybody else, we're just that's a terrible direction to head in. And so, I think the LGBTQ plus community is one of those that government has worked for so long to make life harder for them. For what? Like, where does that get us? Like, what good does that do anybody? And so, I mean, that's part of, I guess, why I wanted to sponsor this effort. But, yeah, I mean, also I'm an ally. So yeah, there was a second question. I don't know what it was.
Well, I want to say this. So when Noelle said, 10% of folks that are voting, 10% of the population is queer. I mean, and that can be life-changing and election-changing.
Mm-hmm.
Queer people need to hear that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because I work in a nonprofit, and mostly African-American people think that their vote doesn't count.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's a whole nother issue.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
We could do a whole other episode on that.
That's a whole nother thing. And I say, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten more involved with Pride, I am so surprised by the whole I'm not political thing, and how if 10% can make a difference, then we need to be rocking that 10%.
Right.
Every day,
sure.
all day long, and involved with your group. Involved with all the groups, and really, letting our voice be heard. And nonpartisan. I mean, whatever. But
100%. Yeah.
But do step into it. Lean into the fact that it matters.
Well, and I think organizations like the ones who are represented here on this podcast, I think we have to realize, what does it mean for people to say I'm not political? Does it really mean I'm not political, or does it mean I'm not comfortable having this conversation? Because I think we have to meet people where they are. It's been really frustrating for me doing the work that I do, that a lot of people, like, they might share beliefs that are similar to mine, but they don't want to be out there.
Yeah.
They don't, it's not comfortable. They don't like confrontation. They don't want to, it's just not comfortable for some people. Yeah. And so, like, one of the things that Mississippi United has done to address that is that we make it so that if let's see, our latest letter that Mississippi United has that we're circulating for signatures is going to Governor Reeves and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman and House Speaker Jason White, and it's opposing redistricting. And so the way we've done these letters in the past is it's basically a Google form, and people can read the letter and then plug in their information so that whoever the elected official is getting the letter sees, well, Greta Martin from Jackson, Mississippi signed on to this letter. Well, now we're making it so that people can just sign with their initials. Like, because in Mississippi, there's so many people I run into, not so many, but a substantial enough number say, Kathleen, I love the work you're doing. You're right on. I totally agree with you. I just can't be out there because my wife works at IHL, or I work at UMMC, or what about, my kids' parents' friends, or, all these excuses. And I'm not like that, but I have to respect that other people are. And for a lot of them, it's literally about preserving their family's livelihood,
And the irony is that the closet is not just for queer people.
Oh my gosh.
That's true.
Where's the drum roll, Daniel?
Yeah, that was great. That's good. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
when we're talking about political stuff,
Yeah, it's like
we're talking about
these days the closet is you know, a lot of people who, you know, anyone who's not MAGA feels some pull to be closeted about that. And so what we're doing is now we let folks just sign with their initials. So Tate Reeves will see that GM from Jackson, Mississippi signed the letter, and
He'll see Greta Martin.
He'll see Kathy
Greta
Martin
doesn't
too,
use
but
her
yeah.
initials.
Right. But you know, so we're trying to like ease people into using their voice. And like, you know, another example is so with this Get Out the Vote project, a lot of our work is geared towards building community, because again, the closet, right?
Mhm.
People aren't people who are anything other than MAGA. I think these days in Mississippi, for a lot of people, it's very isolating and you feel lonely. And so part of what we try to do is build these networks and help people make new like-minded friends. And it has like, I can't tell you how much joy that has given me over the last couple years. And so with the Get Out the Vote project, we do a lot of little meetups, like at a coffee shop or at a brewery or at a restaurant. And, you know, just drop in, do some postcards, have a drink, meet some folks. And not everybody wants to do that. And that's okay. And so we also say, well, you know, if you want to do this, but that's not really your thing, could you just have some friends over? You know, so like doing some things that are a little more, I guess, private or a little more discreet, but still you're having an impact and you're making a difference. And
and rallying the troops in
yeah,
a small way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in a way that's not quite so in your face. So you can be political, but it doesn't feel like you're like out there political in a way that's kind of unnerving for people.
But you feel like you're supporting the folks that don't mind to get out there and get in people's faces, like you and me.
Yes.
And Kathy. Like we, you know, people, that still gives them a sense of empowerment that they are supporting the issues they believe in, and they're signing the letters, even if they put their initials. That's still an impact,
right?
And so I do think that those folks are just as important for the movement, because
you
couldn't do the work that you do if you didn't have the folks in the background that are giving the $5 or $10 a month,
right?
Hosting the house parties that nobody but their friends know about. I mean, that's important work,
and it's that vote. It's that one vote.
That's that one vote, and then the conversations that they have, and their, you know, maybe their little network of
that
like
nudges somebody else to vote.
Right.
That's
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. That was great. Okay. Noelle, are you still there?
I'm still here. Still here.
So one of the sessions you're participating in is literally called More Than a Ballot. Why is it important, do you think, for people to pay attention to local, county, state, and off-year elections, not just presidential? Because I think we need to really talk about that, because presidential, everybo's showing out, but then
I want to go after Noelle.
Okay.
It's going to be you or me, because I have a lot to say. I'm sure Noelle does too.
I was really just going to focus on some very specific examples on the coast where this has impacted our community. So the first would be Harrison County School Board. And on the coast, school boards within like Ocean Springs School District are appointed within the city limits, but then within the school district, those two positions are elected. So that's also really confusing. But I have never lived somewhere where your school board members are appointed by your board of aldermen until right now, and they aren't elected positions. So, but the Harrison County School Board, those positions are elected, and that school district with their school board has chosen to put in place some policies that are very discriminatory against gender nonconforming kids. It's impacted them as in they can't walk across the stage and receive a diploma. They have been excluded from their yearbook, and their pictures were not included in the yearbook. It's also impacted, um, like one child this year who was salutatorian was outed, and then their picture, they were dead named on social media, outed, and their picture was photoshopped to make them appear less masculine. Um, and those are specific policies that they have put in place that directly harm kids. Also, with school boards, every school board on the coast, we have really tried to get them to adopt a cell curriculum K through 12. We think that's very important. That is social emotional learning. We know from the data coming in from New Orleans that social emotional learning curriculum has dropped their suicide rate, has dropped the overall crime rate within the city. So there's data that really, it also affects graduation rates in a positive way, social emotional learning. So we know that this could have really positive impacts on the Mississippi coast, and we have not gotten a single school board so far to implement that curriculum. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is, the Safer Act is really going to impact kids at schools across the state as well. With, it's gender assigned at birth, and it restricts where they can go to the bathroom, locker rooms, dorm rooms, all of those type of things. Have a huge impact on gender nonconforming students' lives. And we've seen here in Ocean Springs some direct harm caused by HB 1125, which banned gender confirming care for gender nonconforming kids at minors. So it banned their ability to access blockers, and it banned their ability to access mental health care. And we've seen some suicides. Probably the most prominent one was a 16-year-old Jordan May that we lost to suicide because of HB 1125. And that's had a real, impact on our community directly, where you just feel somewhat helpless because you don't feel very heard from the state legislature. I feel like they have blood on their hands, but they don't even really realize how harmful that law was to kids. And then on a local level, and I'll just speak to Ocean Springs specifically. Um, we had when I was running the Ocean Springs Pride Council, we always did a bike ride, a pride bike ride. We'd ride bikes through downtown at night and have everybody's bikes and golf carts decorated. And we had never had to have a permit for that. Lots of other organizations do pride and golf cart rides without having to get a permit. And we had a change in administration that when I emailed them just to say, hey, this is when we're running, they emailed me back and were like, you need a permit to have that. And I was like, well, these other organizations didn't have to have a permit. So I had to call McKenna and email her, and they ended up having to completely change their permitting process and make it more transparent on the city website, and more accessible to all organizations. And then also, we've had issues in Ocean Springs with like flyers that have been directly homophobic put in people's driveways. It started, like, I moved here in 2015. The first ones that I'm aware of were put out by the KKK in June of 2016. And they had a lot of homophobic language. And when we went to the police department and the Board of Aldermen, they both said, well, that's really not hate. Like, we don't classify that as hate speech. Those flyers are really just classified as litter and a misdemeanor, and we can't really investigate that or, prevent it from happening. And like even apply a fine. So we've since been, we've had those flyers about every other year from different organizations. Sometimes they're racist and sometimes they're homophobic, and they have also been anti-Semitic. But we continue to try to get our Board of Aldermen to change their ordinance to at least put a fine, on a hefty fine, on those type of flyers being distributed in driveways in the middle of the night in the city. And I think all of those, when you go back to like trying to work with your legislature, your Board of Aldermen, city council, school board, every one of those people have power that impacts queer life in Mississippi, whether it be negative or positive. And, whether it's city ordinances that protect you, but also city, just the lack of city ordinances that don't protect the queer community. So I think all of those are direct impacts on our community, and we need to really focus some energy there. So thanks.
None of that has to do with the presidential election, right? That's all your local,
very local,
and state officials.
Can't even be more local.
So
Boom.
exactly,
Yeah.
like everything she outlined is are issues that are stemming from a lack of representation in our local and state government.
And it's those local races that end up jump-starting the careers of folks who go on to be leaders at the state level and the federal level. And so,
right.
That guy who's running for city council, who's totally cool with the KKK flyers, like 10 years from now, he could be running for governor.
Right.
Or judges are also elected in Mississippi.
Right, absolutely.
So you have somebody who's going to be overseeing a name change for a trans person or a same-sex divorce or something like that. So just even the things that you think of as being specifically apolitical are going to end up influencing the way that people are treated in your community.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. All right. So I've got a question either from McKenna and Kathleen. So a big theme running through Pride and Power seems to be removing barriers, whether those barriers are legal, informational, financial, or simply feeling like you don't know enough to participate. So let's just talk again about, because this is so important, why civic participation? Genuinely, accessible look like, what does it look like from different perspectives? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'll talk about why, the most obvious thing to me, that is the most obvious and kind of universal issue to me, that would encourage civic participation is just pocketbook issues right now.
Oh.
And
we haven't talked about that.
No.
But
I mean, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, Christian, Muslim, atheist, whoever you are, you're being impacted.
You're still going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And filling up your gas tank.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think I mean, that's one of the big issues that Mississippi United is focused on is increases in the cost of living. And then the other one is corruption, because those issues impact every single Mississippian. And one of the things we're trying to educate folks about is specifically how our current elected officials have played a role in those cost of living issues. And I think a lot of Mississippians might be surprised to understand that the Big Beautiful Bill, which was passed and signed into law last summer, has just the combination of the Big Beautiful Bill and tariffs has a net impact on every Mississippi family making under $200,000 a year, so that's the vast majority of us, an average net impact of negative $1,700. So because of that bill that was, I mean, you can look at it as Cindy Hyde-Smith or Roger Wicker, either one of them having the tie-breaking vote, because that bill only passed the Senate because of J.D. Vance's vote, right? And so that means any single senator who voted for it had the tie-breaking vote. And so our 2 U.S. senators voted for that, and it's costing every one of our families just about, on average, $1,700 a year. And of course, the poorer you are, the bigger the hit you're taking. And
the more it matters.
Right, of course. And the median household income in Mississippi is like $56,000. And so if you think about what $1,700 means to a family that's only bringing in, $56,000, that's really significant.
Right.
And and so of course the question is, well, what's the upside? Surely, like, Mississippi's elected officials who voted for this bill, they must have thought, well, okay, yeah, my constituents are going to take a hit, and they can't answer what that but is.
Or they wouldn't even show up to take an answer.
That's right.
Or take a question.
Well, Senator Hyde-Smith's staffer criticized me for coming with these facts. Right.
Yeah.
Because I took the research and the spreadsheet and said, why? You come with all these facts, he said to me.
What's wrong with you?
And then, similarly, there was a group of us with Mississippi United who went to see Senator Wicker's staff after the Iran war started to say, he's chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Like, there's a whole lot he can be doing. And what is he doing? And here are some examples of things that we hope that he will do. And his staffer told us the senator just doesn't have any power.
Oh.
And so, what Mississippians need to understand about, this midterm election where no, President Trump is not on the ballot. There's, this is not a presidential race, but we are voting for people, both senators and members of the House of Representatives, who have oversight authority over the president. Like, that is literally a huge part of their job as members of the U.S. Congress, is to investigate misfeasance and to, investigate abuses of power and corruption, and to say no, when it benefits their constituents, or when some proposal is going to harm their constituents. And to hear a staffer say the senator has no power, I mean, it's just, well, then why are you there? So I think the more Mississippians understand the job of a U.S. senator, the job of a member of the House of Representatives, the more likely they will be to actually go out and vote.
Right.
And I think it's also important, which we have asked members of both the federal and state panels to be prepared to discuss. While this is nonpartisan, we have asked them to come prepared to discuss what our current sitting senators and representatives have done. And that's like data, right? Like that's like what they voted on, what they have proposed, what they have done while they're in office.
And what's
happening.
Again,
if you walk away and you're okay with that, then by all means, you have the ability to go and exercise your vote. But I truly believe if people got the data, got those numbers, the hard and fast facts, and took that home and saw how it's impacting their day-to-day lives, that will be reflected in their vote as it should.
Okay. All right. We could keep talking forever.
We could.
You got something you want to say?
I do.
Okay.
So on the topic of like civic engagement and kind of like why this is important. So the ACLU is a multi-issue organization. So I do only LGBTQ work, or I've also gotten pulled into immigration work because that's really important right now as well.
Yeah.
But we also work on environmental justice, racial inequality, like voting, bodily autonomy, criminal justice, like all kinds of issue areas. And all of those are impacted by voting and like being able to elect people who maybe align with your ideals. And the ACLU has a website called Magnolia Ballot. So it's magnoliaballot.com. And it's providing a lot of the same things that are happening in the some of the informational panels. So it's like, these are the dates that you have upcoming for like deadline to register. And this is what you do if you're turned away, and like all that kind of information. So that kind of thing is important. And I also want to point out that the Mississippi legislature proposes anti-LGBTQ bills every single year.
Every year.
And I think 2023, it was like 31 bills or something like that.
Right.
Yep.
So
trying to make life harder for everybody.
Exactly. So if you want to think on the like macro level, it's like every issue that the ACLU cares about, a lot of what we funnel into our work, we try to like focus on voting because that impacts every area.
That's right.
But if you also just want to focus on the micro issue of LGBTQ issues, that is also like very specifically linked to the democratic process and being able to elect people who are not going to attack you every legislative session.
Right.
Okay, well, we are out of time, but I did want to say this. Thank you guys. You guys are the best.
Thank
we could go
you.
another half an hour and an hour.
Oh, I could go all day.
So I did want to say this. So the podcast is This Is Your Cue. Greta.
Yes.
Give us 30 seconds why people need to come next Saturday.
Education, civic participation, and empowerment. We need to get our voters educated on how their voices impact Mississippi and beyond. And so next Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. at Old Capitol Inn in Jackson, we'll start right at 9 and we'll have sessions throughout the day. This is free, nonpartisan. So we're going to have informational panels, but our vendors and exhibitors will also have materials there that people can take home and marinate on and take it to the ballot in November and beyond.
There we go.
Yeah.
We will see you next Saturday.
Woo.
Awesome.
Yay.
Pride and power.